Hello and welcome to the Thursday Process. I'm Ian Richardson from Richardson & Richardson, your host, and I'm joined today by my friend Michael Crean, the CEO of Solutions Granted. Michael, how you doing?
Good, Ian. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. Everybody, we're going to give just a couple of minutes for people to trickle in. Everyone's kind of flowing in from the waiting room, so we'll give it just a couple of minutes and then we'll get started, probably right at 11:32. So if you need to grab a glass of water, a pen and paper, anything like that, go ahead and grab it. We'll get started about 2 after the hour. If you're curious, the process is in the handouts section in your upper right-hand corner. You can download the process that we're talking about today. That's yours to keep. For those of you just joining, thank you for joining us here today. We'll get started in about a minute's time. So if you need to grab a glass of water, anything else, pen and paper, now's the time to do it.
Ian, how's the weather with you today?
Oh, it is gorgeous. It's about 73. I've got for those of you who know me, I've got a Carrie and I bomb around the country in a converted camper van quite a bit of the time, and I am out in the van today. But I've got the side door open, the fan's on, breeze running through. Can't beat it.
It doesn't sound like an awful day to me.
No, sir. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you just joining us, thank you. Welcome. My name's Ian Richardson. I'm one half of Richardson & Richardson Consulting, and I'm joined today by my friend Michael Crean. Michael's the CEO of Solutions Granted. And today we're going to be talking about a process for business transformation. And transformation's a little bit tricky there. Reinvention really resonates in my mind quite a bit, but we'll dive into it. A couple things before we get started. A quick disclaimer. The presentations covered in the Thursday process are intended for educational purposes only. They shouldn't replace your your own personal judgment or independent personal and professional advice. Statements of facts and opinions expressed are those of the participants. They don't represent the opinion or position of employers, certifying bodies, companies, etc. Nothing here should be presented as legal or financial advice. And you may be watching this on demand. Today is the 8th of September at 11:30 Eastern in the morning. But if you're watching this on a different day, recognize that this has not been updated, modified, edited since this live recording. So the situation, market forces, etc. may have changed. A little bit of housekeeping. Everyone's on mute. There are polls that will pop up starting at about 11:35. Those polls help us shape and provide content on the Thursday process. If you can fill them out, respond to them, that is useful, especially with polls around what your opinions are on things, what you would like to have. Those really do help us with recruiting guests and figuring out what type of content to present. Questions and answers, throw your Q&A out in the chat in the Q&A section. I will be monitoring and managing that. We'll probably stitch in questions as we go through, but there is a little bit of time right at the end. But if you have a burning question, don't hold it back, throw it in and we will answer it. And again, there's the handouts over on the side. You see a snapshot right there. Go ahead and grab the process handout. That's yours to keep. And if you have any further questions, or if you have a desire to be connected with Michael directly, please throw that out as a question as well, and I can make sure to make that connection after the webinar. So some introductions. My name is Ian. I've been in the managed services game for a long time. I sold my MSP at the end of last year. I'm a certified StratOp facilitator and executive coach, and process is kind of my jam. If you talk to anyone in the world, that's really what I like to do. So it's my privilege and pleasure to talk with other CEOs. That's all I'm going to talk about. Me and Richardson & Richardson. Michael Crean is our guest.
Uh-oh, Ian, I'm not sure if we lost you or not. I think I've got you frozen on my side. Let's see. Anybody maybe drop a message in the Q&A? Let us know. Yep, we definitely looks like we lost Ian. Did everybody else lose him? If somebody could drop a message in the Q&A, that helped me know if we've lost him or we're back. We lost him. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. All right. And there we go, Alan. All right, I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead, and if Ian covered it, I'm sorry I didn't hear him, but let me go ahead and, kind of go over a little bit about who I am and, where we've come to this place today. So my name is Michael Crean. I'm the CEO and founder of Solutions Granted. We are a master managed security services provider, been in business for 21 years. We've done a little bit of a lot in those 21 years, and we've kind of gone through several transformations in that time. But where we find ourselves today in this cybersecurity space, United States Army combat veteran, really never thought I'd be doing this as far as my life was concerned when I could see myself back in the days of the Army when I got out in 1997. But as I got into the IT space and started doing some more interesting things that really didn't know my life had in store for me, we found ourselves in a place where, we're now one of the top 250 MSSPs in the world and have been for the last 3 years. Ian, look at you. You're back, sir.
Yes, I am.
Been on the CRN Security 100 list for the last 4 years, the ASCII Vendor of the Year in 2021. And, also we are, as it stands today, the largest silenced MSSP in the world.
Hey, perfect. Thanks for picking it up, Michael.
No, I appreciate it. I'm asking everybody in the Q&A to say, hey, is it me? Is it you? Somebody help me out here. And everybody jumped in and said, yep, you were gone and frozen. So
Perfect. Perfect. All right, everybody. I am in a van and I'm running off a cell service here. So if I drop off, I apologize in advance. Michael will just kind of pick it up, but appreciate your understanding on it. So Michael, since you already introduced yourself, let's dive right in. What are we talking about today? We're talking about business reinvention, business transformation. So rewind the clock back to 2010. Solutions Granted started as a MSP. You guys did IT work. What was going on in your world back then that created where you're at today?
I think, well, first of all, any of you that know me, I might have a little bit of an aggressive nature. Thank you, Uncle Sam. I'm not sure if that's their fault or whose fault that is, but yes, I know that about myself, and I work on it every day diligently to become a little bit less of an asshole and a lot of a nicer, better person. But what I was finding is that, my bedside manner wasn't allowing me to service my customers in the way that I knew they wanted and needed it, but also I wasn't feeling passionate. I was really tired of what I was considering the Mickey Mouse problems of, hey, maybe you're just too stupid to use that computer. We should box it up and give you back the pen and paper because, you didn't understand that little blinky light on the printer that was trying to tell you that you were out of paper, you were out of toner, somehow became my emergency. And, one certain defining event was somebody had called me on Christmas Eve. And this was it. They couldn't print. This is like 8:00 at night on Christmas Eve. And this is a panic. It's an emergency. And this is their home. And while we weren't supporting people in their homes, we were supporting the executives of the businesses that we were supporting as an MSP. And for me, that was just a really frustrating moment. And I was so angry at myself. I was angry at my customer. And I felt so disengaged that I was like, I can't keep doing this. This isn't healthy for me. It's not healthy for my company, and it sure isn't healthy for my clients. So I had to find a way to change, because if I didn't change, change was going to find me.
Yeah, that walking through and finding that inconvenient truth, or that change agent before it finds you, really makes things a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
So you recognized, hey, we got to make a change. I'm disengaged. This is impacting the clients. This is impacting the team. This is impacting the business. This is impacting my home. We want to find a new, engaging, exciting focus. What was happening? What did you and your team do to evaluate a path forward?
All right. Looks like I can see you moving again. I don't know if
There
that
we
was
go.
me or you this time.
I don't know. So we're talking about path forward. Again, apologies everyone for a little bit of the technical difficulties. What did you and your team do to figure out how you wanted to move forward?
Well, we had to figure out what were we passionate about. What was it that we wanted to be when we grow up? And I know that's a really interesting statement. I've done it for years. When I hire somebody, I'll ask them that question. It's like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it has nothing to do with their age. It has nothing to do with where they're at in life. It's just really understanding who they are and where they're at and what their passion might be. And, I've been maybe counseled a couple times that might not be a good question in the HR world to ask anymore. So I avoid that one, but I certainly live that idea of every day when I wake up, well, what do I want to be today? And what do I want to be when I grow up? And, because, maybe the influence of my past military life and the idea of protecting a protector and being of that warrior mentality and defending people that can't defend themselves, it's like, we were becoming more drawn to cybersecurity. And it was like, okay, well, we love what we're doing in our firewall world. We love what we were doing. We liked who we were partnered with in SonicWall. It's like, hey, why can't we just be a firewall management monitoring company? What's wrong with that? I mean, we love it. We know what we're doing. We think we're fantastic and amazing. And we've kind of gotten to this point of maybe even being considered a subject matter expert. So let's do this because there's truly a need and we're passionate about it. So that was, it was kind of, it sounds simple. I don't know that it was as simple as it sounds, but that's kind of how we got there and the way we went.
And so as you said, hey, let's pursue looking at firewalls. You did a couple of specific steps. You and your team looked at all of your capabilities and almost created an internal inventory of, look, this is what we're good at. This is what we're good at with firewalls. This is what we could provide as part of that service. Here's the way we could make recurring revenue. Here's the way that here's the way that we're going to have profit and show value, and keep engaged. You really looked at an assessment of impact and talk about that. Talk about does what the line that you told me when we were talking before the webinar is what we're going to do, does it matter? Talk about that process of creating the inventory and assessing your impact.
So, I think it's a lot of everything that I do in my life. And, that was a big moment of, is it something that I can be proud of? Is it something that I can find worth and value? Because if I believe in it, then I can hopefully find a way to make others believe in me. Because if I'm not passionate about what I'm doing, then how do I inspire passion and change in others? And so, that was a big one. And then on the other side of that, it was also taking the inventory of our capabilities that we had no desire and passion for, and making sure that we weren't allowing those to get in the way just because we were distracted by the capability of making money or because somebody asked. And so as we started to narrow that down and understand, hey, yes, especially in 2010, where we stand today, 12 years later, the cybersecurity threat landscape has radically changed. Mm-hmm. And the gatekeeper to much, and I won't say all, obviously, but too much of security was being done at that perimeter. And so, we really felt like there was this fantastic opportunity that it was the ADT theory. Just because you put a sign in your yard doesn't make you protected. If somebody's really looking after it, if somebody's really providing that love, care, and feeding, and somebody is doing the right things to monitor it, provide best practices, and also use it as a business development tool. That was one really unique thing that when we were looking at our capabilities, could we take this to somebody and not just sell security? Could we tell them, hey, Becky Lynn in accounting, and sorry for all the Becky Lynns that are listening, Becky Lynn in accounting was on Facebook for 27 hours last week, and that's not a really good use of your employees' time. And does that help provide productivity? And can you take that productivity and see that as a way of better leveraging your security? And I thought the answer was yes. And so, that was something that we thought was really impactful.
Mm-hmm. Being able to present that data and tie your offer. What I'm hearing there is when you're looking at impact, don't look at just what you're doing. Look at the problems you could be addressing by doing what it is you do. So you're managing the firewall, you're protecting the organization through the perimeter, but you have the capacity and the capabilities to look at productivity, to look at time wasters, to look at other sorts of risks to that business. And you're solving issues that they didn't know that they had.
Right. Yeah. And also helping them see that, while I'm buying security, can I put this into a different bucket? Can I make this, maybe pull some money from HR, or pull some money from management, or pull some money from somewhere else, that I'm getting something out of it that leverages my business's success while I'm buying security and doing the right thing?
That's it's interesting that you mentioned around pull money from other areas. One of the Carrie's not on this webinar, but one of the drums she's been banging is that while IT spend is usually very, very minimal at an organization, you might be able to get 1, 2, 3 really forward-thinking 4%. The average marketing budget for organizations is 8 to 12%. And if you start having conversations around what is the brand damage and how much dollars will we have to spend after a breach, after a cybersecurity incident, is it not worth maybe allocating a bit of the marketing budget proactively to security to prevent that damage, to prevent having to spend those dollars down the road repairing our image?
Or avoiding even a internal disgruntled employee lawsuit because you've got this new employee that potentially sees pornography as art. But then you've got, the employee that's been with you for 30 years, he or she is in their 60s or 70s and does not see it as art, but then they walk by it in the office and they're offended and they're upset. And now you've got a hostile work environment. And so just even being proactive around preventing something that could be seen or looked at as non-appropriate workplace material.
Mm-hmm.
That was another big one. We started telling that story and it was almost like nobody had ever heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, I don't want to be big brother. I don't want to stop things. Well, I'm fine with being big brother. I don't mind. Look, I've got enough kids that I know how to say no. So for me, that's not my issue, but it was an issue of finding ways to get people to be more comfortable with saying no in ways that felt soft and cuddly, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit to go back to where you were, to come off as not the asshole, but to come off as their friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple of key pieces of infrastructure that had to get built out: collateral, and this is sales and marketing collateral to support the new offer, and a slew of new TCPs, or target client profiles. Now, whether you use TCP, ICP, ideal client profile, targets, whatever the buckets that you're targeting, you do have to define them, and you probably had some overlap from your previous MSP customers, but I'm guessing there were certain customer segments that you said, look, these are no longer going to be a fit. These are not the customers that we're after. Talk to us about how you looked at your existing base and your existing processes that you might have had from your MSP days, because you had been setting up firewalls, you were familiar with the platform. How were you able to make it easier to jump into focusing on a new offer, a new messaging strategy, and a new type of client?
So, first and foremost, like what I would never advise anybody to do is if you decide to make a pivot and shift, you just go back and fire all of your clients because you no longer want them, because that's not good. I mean, unless you are just financially independent and wealthy or so well backed that you can afford to take that loss until you think you can get to the run rate that you need. And so we didn't do that. We didn't fire anybody. We allowed natural attrition to take place. We wanted to be responsible to the things that we had agreed to do. And we didn't want to just dump anybody on their head, because even if we became wildly successful at doing this other thing, we didn't want to leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth. So we certainly didn't try to pivot too fast, which I thought was important as we were looking at this new type of clients. But then what we really started to figure out is we didn't really want to deal with the end users anymore. And as we were starting to make this transition, so we said, okay, let's focus on MSPs. Let's get away from the end user client, whether it's the dry cleaner, the attorney, or whatever it may be, the school system. Let us remove ourselves from that direct client ownership, and let's help those who are helping others. Let's be of service in a greater way to people that maybe can't be of service to themselves and their clients in the way that we are starting to become subject matter experts. And so that was a big one for us, is, and we knew it. We knew all of the things that we loved about being an MSP. We knew all of the things that we absolutely hated that manufacturers did to us as an MSP, whether it was stupid contracts or mandatory requirements to do this, that, or the other thing, or the annual spend, or the evergreen clause. Man, I'm like the biggest hater of the evergreen clause that's ever been. Like, make me sign a term on something, and then if I don't get within the window and I get busy, tired, lost, or sick, I'm just going to get sucked in for another 3 years because no. That was one thing that I knew as we were trying to find the new clients. We wanted to be more friendly than we had felt we had been treated, and take some lessons learned of the way that we had been treated well.
So taking and this is a good transition into initial missteps. Some of the missteps you were able to avoid was from your experience on the other side of the table. How have I been treated? How have contracts treated me? This is not how we want to treat people moving forward. So no reinvention goes smoothly. And in my experience, reinvention is probably one of the most tumultuous times in either an individual or an organization's existence.
Yeah.
What talk about some of the initial missteps in those early days. What were some of the mistakes that we made that may be helpful to the audience to hear about, so that they can try to avoid them? They can learn from the misfires.
Oh man, I think one of the bigger ones is getting distracted. That was a big mistake that I was making. The distraction from someone else's success that I saw as a competitor, that I've now removed myself from that particular line of business, and thinking, well, I can do it. This is like in as an MSP, and Ian, you can probably come back to this, is like most MSPs are like the yes man and yes woman. Like, yep, I can do it. Yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do that. It's like we almost have this, and it's not an ego, I don't think. I think it's almost this fear of the moment that we say no, that we're going to get replaced by somebody else that'll just say yes.
Right.
And and there's some ego that goes along with it. I think we all feel like, hey, we can do everything, but can you do it well? And that was, some of the missteps that, I had to constantly keep kicking my own ass of like, what are you doing, dummy? Stop trying to be everything for everyone. Be what you said you wanted to be, and just be amazing at that, and stop being distracted. That was a big one. I mean, that probably took a little while. When I say a little while, I'm saying like maybe up until about even 3 years ago, I was still like struggling when somebody would say, hey, we love what you're doing for us. Can you not be our help desk? Didn't you say that you used to do this? Can you not? And the answer is like, well, yeah, can we have, yeah, we can do it. I mean, and technically we still have, one or two clients today that we're still doing it for because they've just never left us. The attrition has never completely gone. And it's helped at the end of the day because it keeps us connected in ways that we see certain types of different actions on the threat landscape that I'm not sure if we would see it if we were just 100% all in on the security side and doing nothing else. But that was a big one. I was getting in my own way. And that was why a lot of it didn't work. And, I couldn't blame anyone else. I couldn't tell anybody else it was their fault. It was all mine. I had to take ownership for it. And I had to constantly keep reminding myself how dumb I was being and what I really wanted and what I didn't want.
Mm-hmm. So if you think about, and it never works this way, but to ask the question that I know is going to hit the chat panel. If you think about timelines, so magic, it's January 1, 2010. We're now an MSSP. We've invented a word. We're now a managed firewall provider. How long did it take from you saying like, look, this is the direction, this is the strategy, team, here's the plan, let's rah, let's go out. You've rolled out the plan until when you feel, hey, like we're not there yet, but we've at least walked through the first door. We've made some changes. We're on the right path. About how long did it take you in that timeline to get to where you were starting to feel comfortable through your redefinition?
You mean where the light at the end of the tunnel didn't feel like a train?
Yeah.
So I think it was, we became the North American Partner of the Year the following year to SonicWall. Mm-hmm. And for us, it was like, I couldn't buy that. I couldn't influence it. I couldn't make it happen other than through hard work and determination. And so for me, that was like, okay, we're on the right path. And this light that we're seeing that's somewhere down the way that's coming at us is not a train. It's working. And so that was probably it for us. And, I don't know that there's a magical time frame that happens, but that probably happened to be one of it. Because like if I had to bet money when they were talking about, who was going to be the partner of the year that year, like I'd have bet on everybody else but myself.
Mm-hmm. So with and I want to swing back to SonicWall, but we'll pop back to SonicWall in a couple of slides here. So pulling up our process, there's 3 key steps that you and I talked about quite at length. And so the first one is when you get to the point where you start saying no to opportunities in your old markets. You're turning down revenue. So you've got a help desk thing coming in. We talked about some natural attrition, but talk to us about how you and your team were able to start saying no. Talk about those conversations, because that is tough. I remember from my MSP days, you have this weird intrinsic pressure and sometimes very real pressure. There was a very, very large multi-site health clinic. It was an urgent care clinic that would come to us with almost everything. Mm-hmm. And it was tough to go to them to say, like, you know what, nope. Before we were doing voice at my old IT shop, that was a big one. Hey, we want you to manage the phones. Now we don't do phones. And, like you could call us and we could call the vendor or whatever, but all they're going to do is ask us a question, then we're going to have to call you back. So like if you want to call us and have us submit the ticket for you, we're fine, but you really need to manage your own phones yourself. That's not what we do. But how are you and your team able to start having those conversations and saying no because it's money on the table that you're walking away from?
I mean, so part of it came down to the realization is that there is one thing in life you can't create more of, and it's time. Mm-hmm. Time is that constant across the universe that binds us all together, and there's just no way to make more of it. So you just have to get efficient with it and make it work for you and really prioritize what you've got going on. And so that was a big one for us. We were a lean, mean fighting machine, and there was not very many of us. And so part of it, it was just like, look, I can't work 22 hours a day. You can't work 22 hours a day. Will can't work more than he's already working. And I'm already feeling bad because, I'm coming into the office every Saturday doing work, and I'm coming in on Sundays and doing work. And, I think as an entrepreneur and when you're the owner, you do those things because you have to burn it on both ends of the candle and sometimes in the middle, because that's what it requires in the beginning. And this was kind of a rebirth in the beginning. So, and it just got to the point where I think the no's became a lot easier when I was missing time with my family. I had I had this beautiful Harley Davidson that I hadn't ridden in 3 or 4 months. And I didn't even ride it to work when I had the ability to ride it to work because I was afraid that there was a call that I should probably be taking, and I took no time for myself. And that was a big one, finding, and it was all really about that self-realization of, what's more important? Is it more important to take one more phone call, to say one more yes, or maybe take a little bit better care of myself? And through that leadership and through that promise to my employees of, I take care of myself, you take care of yourself. And then in turn, we do take better care of our clients, the things that we're promising them, as opposed to the things that, yeah, we can, but we should probably say no.
One of the key points too that you created a highlight around in the process document that's again up and available under handouts is while focus on letting attrition naturally happen or naturally churn out. If there's a particular account or relationship that you can no longer properly serve, don't hold back. Have that conversation, because you never want to burn the bridge.
Yeah, and I have been a victim of my own failure in that one for sure. My first client, and everybody remembers their first. I don't care if it's your first dog, your first girlfriend, your first teacher that really inspired you, your first client, whatever that first is. I don't know why, maybe it's just the way that we're built, but it always holds this really special place psychologically and emotionally and physically. And it was the first client, and I knew as I was growing in a different direction and they were growing as their organization, I could not come to terms with telling them no. And that was really, really difficult for me. And when it finally got to a point where I was truly letting them down, I was bad for them. I was bad for my business. I was bad for my employees. I was creating all of this unnecessary stress and anxiety. And every time the phone rang and it was their number, another email came in, it was this immediate visceral, here we go again. And it eventually got to the point where it got really adversarial, and it was like, okay, can't do it. They can't do it. We can't do it. We're being replaced. And then I felt miserable. I felt like I had failed. I felt like I had completely not taken care of them, not taken care of me, not taken care of my team. And I was distraught. I was just like, Ian, I think you know this about me. One, I hate to lose. I am the most competitive freaking individual. We're going to a Capitals game and my 11-year-old son decides to run up the steps. Dude, you better get going because here I come. I'm racing you up the damn steps. This is how competitive I am. So even in my personal life, my professional life, I can't stand to lose. And I felt like I lost.
No.
But then what happened was I went to bed that night and I woke up the next day and the sun came up and the birds were chirping and, I was still alive. And it didn't feel good, but I was still there. And then a week goes by and I feel better, and a month goes by and I feel better. And then, it's 3 months after it. And I actually had to go apologize to my team, not because they needed it, but because I needed it. The apology was for me. I let you down. I was not the leader that inspired change. I did not give you the opportunity to go create the change and power that you needed to create because I held on to it for my own selfish needs. And man, that was a big moment of me learning something. That was, tough way to get there and a great lesson for me in my life. But man, that was a tough one, man.
Well, and so that's a good piece on there. One of the constant management items that you had brought up is making sure to communicate. There's a book called The Energy Bus I'm a big fan of, which is really when you're the CEO, when you're that leader, you have to be the cheerleader. That's the Energy Bus's words, is you have to be the organization's cheerleader. You have to be rallying that cry, like, this is the vision, this is why we're doing this is why we moved. We didn't want to fix printers anymore, we want to do this. So even though today is a crap day,
right,
it's still better than the best day when we were working on a printer.
Yeah. It kind of goes along with what Ronald Reagan had said. It said something about, the greatest leaders aren't the ones, it's the greatest leaders who are not the ones who do the greatest things. He's the one who gets the people to do the greatest things.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes right along with that, being the cheerleader.
Being the person who inspires, because you didn't hire all these people to then have to tell them what to do every single time. You hired them to make it better, to make it easier, and for them to bring their expertise into the room.
Yeah, for sure.
So you had a couple of pretty big, heavy hitting management items. Self-discipline amongst your team being a big one, which we just kind of talked about, keeping that cadence and that focus around making sure you don't fall off. And then another one that you said was to celebrate your wins in your new offer. So when you land an account, when you get that first sale of the month in the new offer, or you're able to convert an account from an old offer to a new offer, that you have to make a big deal of it. And keeping that motivation high. But there was one that really, really jumped out, and we talked about being the partner of the year for SonicWall, and you've got a very good story around this. But one of your key pieces of advice is around loyalty, and not so much to being disloyal. Be loyal to your partners, be loyal to the vendors that support you, but you have a message around diversification. So I don't want to steal the thunder. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about that lesson and why diversification is so important when you're defining yourself?
So, during this process of making this change and choosing SonicWall as our go-to, SonicWall, what people didn't know, SonicWall was a lot more than just a firewall company. I mean, they had wireless, they had backup, they had SSL VPN, they had email security. So they had everything, obviously not everything, because those absolutes always kill me. But they had most of the things that we felt like we needed to offer a really good security stack. And so we were all in. And it's like, I'm going to be loyal to you. You're going to be loyal to me. We're going to treat this like the most committed relationship that anybody's ever been in. And we're going to do it. And then Dell comes in, and Dell acquires SonicWall. And I knew Dell, hadn't had a lot of experience with them, but I hadn't heard really good things. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing change. Like, my pipeline is drying up. And, a year, maybe 18 months after the acquisition of SonicWall by Dell, I think we were down like $1 million in revenue. And it's frustrating. And it's like, and then I've got the old executive team at SonicWall calling me and saying, "Hey, Michael, what's going on?" And I'm mad. And this is the asshole side of me that comes out, because now I'm not playing nice anymore, because I feel like you've taken away my life and you're taking things from me that I've earned. Not that I deserve, but I've earned this, right? And, I'm like, sit there and it's like, "Oh, I'll play your silly game." So I'm sitting at the same desk in the same building on the same computer with the same employees on the same ISP with the same focus. So with all of my same, what changed? Because it wasn't me. So we've got new ownership, and, my feelings, right, wrong, or indifferent. And, I've always felt like, especially in North America, if a sales rep in Dell could take a deal direct, they'd cut their mom's throat to get them out of the way. That is how I felt. And I stick with that statement, and I know it's aggressive and it's not kind, but it has never felt like they really understood the idea of collaboration and success, and understanding that if I sell it, they win. They don't lose. But those salespeople have a quota, and they have what they've got to get. And that's how they're being judged, not through, hey, did I maybe turn this deal over to a partner that then turned into some sort of professional services engagement that wasn't just the idea of selling a widget?
Nope.
So yeah, it was. Now, what I will tell you, there is an amazing success story that comes out of that I couldn't see because I was angry. You know, I was so damn angry. Whew.
But that ability though, to say, hey, look, we need to make sure that we build the type of infrastructure where a vendor isn't necessarily replaceable. But if we need to be able to do a pivot, we can do a pivot. We don't have all the eggs in one basket because things do change. Ownership changes, focus changes, the market changes, a brand changes. And there's, whether you're in the Dell, a fan of Dell or not a fan of Dell, or a fan of Cisco or not a fan of Cisco, or a fan of any of the major vendors in this space or not a fan, when you're a big organization, you acquire something that, like, acquisition dictates that something will change. And so being able to pivot so that your organization doesn't have that loss, that massive loss, and you can maybe potentially avoid a $1 million punch to the face through that focus will be good. There's another two key pieces of advice that you mentioned, and I'm going to start with the last one first, which was really a rallying cry that you and your team have utilized to great effect over the past 12 years. And that was where you remember, you said it to me point blank, Ian, like, one of the things you got to remember is that nobody's going to die today. Yeah. Talk us through that one.
Yeah, so, at any point in time when you're dealing with somebody who's having a problem, they become emotionally attached to that problem and what that pain and suffering feels like to them. And, it continues to grow and expand and just exacerbate itself because you sit in your own stuff. And by the time they get to you as the MSP or the MSSP or the service provider, whatever it may be, they might have started at a 5, but by the time they get to you, no matter how long it takes, I don't care if it's 60 seconds or 60 minutes, they're at an 8, 9, and potentially a 10. And they're not speaking clearly. They're just emotionally just on this roller coaster ride. That idea of you're running around the house like a kid with your hair on fire, and they're so frustrated and they're angry at you as if you've done something wrong and you really haven't. Maybe you did, but most of the time you haven't. And for me, one of the calming statements, and it hasn't always worked, but I think it's a great reminder, is especially being in the military and going into combat, I have that perception and understanding of life and death, true life and death. And so some of that comment is like, hey, remember something. You're not going to die today. I'm not going to die today. When this is all said and done, 1, I'm going to have a hot meal. 2, I'm going to lay my head down on a really comfortable bed with a nice pillow in a climate-controlled environment, and I am going to go to sleep. And nobody's going to be shooting at me. Nobody's going to be dropping bombs on me. There's no nerve gas coming at me. And we're all going to wake up, God willing, the next morning and not be 6 feet under. So if we live our lives in that moment of these very stressful things that are happening to us and remind ourselves of the importance of what we're dealing with and how it's going to affect somebody else's life, priority, but not as much of a priority as human life. To me, and I know it's a hard thing to say because you don't ever want to do the, okay, pumpkin, here, pumpkin, it's going to be okay. You don't want to do that because that's very condescending. But just that reminder of the reality of where the priorities really exist and what we should be thinking about.
Yeah, keeping it into perspective where, hey, this is a bad situation. But at the end of the day, you're going to go home. I'm going to go home. Your team's going to go home. My team's going to go home. We're all going to be able to wake up tomorrow and not, and we're not going to walk back in and there's going to be one less person around the table because they died.
Right.
And that's a really, really key reminder, which also on those bad days that adversity doesn't mean a bad thing. Right. And that a challenge bubbling up really is an opportunity begging for attention.
or an opportunity waiting to have its ass kicked.
Nope.
Because a lot of people look at adversity as these moments that you're about to get your ass kicked. And if you just think about it as differently, I have all of this opportunity that's here in front of me and this adversity. And if I choose to beat it and I think and feel that it's possible, that's where the probability comes into play. And then it becomes a possibility, which it's just a mind shift, and I think that's important today in everything that we're doing, that we have to take charge, because if we don't, somebody else takes charge of it and now we're screwed.
Nope. So feedback, really, you mentioned two different things, that validation will occur when you start selling your new offer. So the key piece of this is that, hey, your strategy is working, your messaging is working, your team gets it, you're able to present value, and that there's demand is when someone's saying yes, like when the check hits the bank account, so to speak, when the credit card information goes into the form, that's your validation on the offer. But
what else is like one other really good piece of validation, and I forgot to mention, like when somebody calls you out of the blue and says, hey, so-and-so said I should talk to you. For me, like that validation, and while money's important because I'm not financially independent and wealthy and I don't have like this passive stream of income that I've built yet, but when I get that out of the blue, that means somebody trusts me, and then they put their name and reputation on the line to somebody else. Man, that's a huge piece of feedback and validation for me.
Yeah, the when you start getting referrals in your new space, your new focus, right, that means that others are seeing value and others have faith and trust and are willing to refer you. That's a key milestone of validation too. And so you mentioned that you hit a few different groups for feedback, that you were walking to clients in the new offer, you were talking with your key vendor partners, and you're talking with your team. But really, but talk to us about getting that feedback from your team and creating kind of the biggest advocate for the change, really, because you want to have your team out in front saying, no, this is a good thing, because clients will call them directly. There's a different rapport between an engineer and a client, or an account manager and a client, versus the CEO and the client. Talk to us about that.
This was a definitely growing opportunity for me, because I felt like if I was always in front, always saying it, always doing it, that I was leading by example. What I was not realizing and taking into account is, what was I taking away from the engineer? What was I taking away from the account executive? What was I taking away, from Will or Corey or Jessica that, are part of, or Dave, that are part of my executive leadership team, if I'm not giving them the opportunity to build their own rapport, to build their own base of following. And, that was me not following Ronald Reagan's advice. I was trying to do it all. I wasn't trying to empower and lead my leaders to do the greater things. And, I think that was a tough one for me. I'll say, after being in business for 21 years, it probably wasn't till 4 or 5 years ago that I truly let go and stopped feeling like I had to do it all, because honestly, at the end of the day, they're far better at it than I am. I was being a little bit of a control monster, not gonna lie.
Have to check the type A at the door. So yeah, really making sure that you keep your eye on the ball, that you're able to say no once you get the infrastructure in place, build your infrastructure out. Once you make your pivot, you make the choice, you got to start saying no, or else you're never going to remove yourself from the old offer. And ask people how they're feeling, ask people how they're doing, get your team on board, keep them aligned, give them those opportunities. And then most of all, when you start making sales and when you start making referrals, that's when you're getting the validation. That's when it's working. It's time to hold the path and ignore what's going on in your old space, because that's not where you're headed anymore. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Focus on your new offer. So, Michael, we've been talking about this process. Tell us about Solutions Granted. and what it is you guys do and what you can do for everyone here who's tuning in and watching the Thursday process today. What are you guys bringing to the table?
So we stay in our lane first and foremost, and our lane is being a master managed security services provider. Fancy way of saying that we're an MSSP for MSPs, VARs, other MSSPs that are young and upcoming, people that don't want to build out a 24/7 SOC, people that don't want to have a purple team, people that don't want to have threat hunters, people that don't want to have the infrastructure that it takes to have the SIM to power the SOC, to do the EDR, MDR offering. And the beauty of what we're doing that we learned through time is that everything that we do is with no annual commits and no minimums. So I tell people all the time, like, you want to come to me for one endpoint of MDR, be it cloud or traditional endpoint, cool, you could be my new next best friend. You want to come to me with 5,000 endpoints of something? Well, now you can be my new next best friend. And we'll just keep replaying that. This is a home for everyone. I don't care where you're at in your journey. Maybe you need one thing that we do. Maybe you need 5 things that we do. But whatever you need, you have a home here regardless of size and opportunity. Because, I look at some of my competitors around me and they want you to sign these annual or multi-annual commits. They want you to come in with, 100 or hundreds of endpoints that you're going to commit to, which now means you're sitting on shelfware or you're eating it, whatever it may be. I want people to be successful and help them in their journey where they at, and then help them mature. And that's who we are as an organization, to, try to meet everybody. Now, can we do everything for everyone? Absolutely not. Can't do it, won't do it, won't even tell you we should be doing it. You come in to me and say, hey, we love SentinelOne, but we don't have anybody managing it. Please do it for us. I understand my no. And I'm going to say, thank you, but no, it's not who we are. Now, if you want me to be the best heart surgeon you've ever met, then let me do it my way with Cylance. And the results are going to be amazing for both of us. So that's kind of who we are as an organization. I won't say everything security, but 90% of what an MSP and its clients needs today, we've got it.
Okay. And so solutionsgranted.com is the way that folks can get out there and find more information. You can also reach out to Michael and his team on LinkedIn. All of them are very active over there. And so we've got a couple of questions cycling in. One of them that I see here, Michael, what are you seeing next? And this is a security, not a reinvention question. This is a security question.
Okay.
Security is evolving a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What are you seeing next? What's coming? Like, what's around the corner? Was how this is phrased. Is what's around the corner in security. So, what are you seeing next in security? What's the trend?
I think right now the trend is definitely focusing more on the people and the process and not the technology. You could pick up another tool and put it in your toolbox, and you kept doing that. The toolbox gets impossible to carry, and you don't even know what you have. So I believe that the trend right now is this idea of collaboration and shared responsibility is what that new trend is, because technology doesn't fix the problem. It just doesn't.
I agree. I think the reliance on tools as a default setting in our industry in the IT channel has been almost a systemic problem. Where, hey, well, we've got this thing. Well, we'll just buy this tool. We'll plug it in. We'll set and forget. And set and forget and security kind of are diametrically opposed. You can't set and forget security. You have to live, eat, and breathe and sleep it.
And you got to shift. I mean, you got to get through it. It's like you're hunting for the needle in the haystack. And if you don't have the people, the proverbial 2 a.m. on a Tuesday is always going to come. I don't care when or who you think you are. It's always going to come. So without the people, without the process, the technology is going to tell you danger, Will Robinson, danger, but there's nobody there to hear danger.
Nope. And if you're not watching, then how are you going to catch that alarm?
Right.
And so if people want to start a partnership with Solutions Granted, what's the first, like, what's the best way? What's the first step? Go to the website, fill out a contact us form, reach out to one of your team on LinkedIn. What's the preferred method on the process there?
Smoke signal, courier, pigeon, telegraph, email, like whatever it is that you're comfortable with, picking up the phone and call. You know, what I'm going to tell you that might be different about what we're going to do with you is the first thing we're going to want to do is have a collaborative security conversation. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what you're proud of and what makes you happy and what makes you sleep at night. How can we potentially enhance that a little bit through just ideas and thoughts and process? And then what makes you afraid? What doesn't allow you to sleep? And how do we fill that gap? It's all about the people. It's all about feeling like you could be a part of a family and have a true conversation with somebody who cares.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can go to our website. You can send an email to info, sales, you know. I'll take the courier pigeon. I don't know where I'm going to pick it up from, but I'll take it out there somewhere.
You gotta be able to clap so that you can get it to flip and drop the message.
Yeah, so, or just bring my dog to work with me, and he'll probably antagonize the hell out of it until it gets scared and drops it.
There we go. So I wanna thank you for taking some time out of your day, Michael, to come down here and share the process that you did to reinvent Solutions Granted from an MSP to an MSSP. Those of you who are out there, if you want to be connected with Michael, if you want to reach out around things, feel free to reach out to me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go to R&R Consulting or solutionsgranted.com to connect with either of the organizations. But you can also feel free to email connect@rndr.consulting with any questions that you might have that didn't get answered, or if you want that direct introduction, I'm more than happy to make that. We've got a few different webinars coming up. This webinar series is happening every Thursday, excluding the third Thursdays of the month. So we're booked all the way out through October. And if you have a process that you've been using in your business that you think the industry could benefit from, please reach out to me, connect to me, and say, hey, I think I might have something that I'd like to share around. Michael, I want to give the last final thought to you. So we're in security. I would be remiss if I didn't say, hey, what's kind of some of the tips or tricks of the trade that people can do to do things? So
sure.
What's something that people could do?
So, you know, there's several things that we see that are constantly causing the events and compromises that are taking place. A lot of it's around not mandating MFA on everything. Choose the Frank's Red Hots analogy. If you guys know the Frank's Red Hots commercial, put it on everything. You know it's good. Don't allow your clients to tell you no, because that no is going to become your panic, your responsibility, and your fix. And that's just going to be a rough day for you. Doing the right things. You've got an investment in all of this technology. Use it. Don't just put it in place, like Ian said, and hope it's going to be fine. Use it for everything that's available to you. So doing the foundational pieces of MFA, role-based access control, no open RDP, outbound port filtering, doing the blocking in 365 or Google Workspace around geo places where people shouldn't be coming from, that conditional access. These are all foundational pieces that defense in depth is going to make the EDR better, is going to make the MDR better, is going to make, all of these other things better. And I think the last thing that I would say is don't live in fear. Make a decision in the best of the abilities that you can. And if it is wrong, it is not a failure. It is a learning moment. David Meltzer said in his last Friday's podcast, you can't spell interference without fear. Don't allow interference to get in the way of your success.
All right. And it looks like we're about to get kicked out. So thank you all for coming here. Really appreciate everyone joining us. I'm Ian from Richardson and Richardson. I think we might have lost Michael there, but until next time, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.